Good morning. I'm Steve Martell. Not to be confused with this Steve, although if this was me, I have accomplished all I need to, and I wouldn't have to be here today, named into a star cluster / aurora borealis, fresh off the press. So I thought I'd add that for some little flavor to this beginning of this presentation. I'm a creative technologist at Current Studios. I live in Brooklyn, New York. There's a long story behind that, but it essentially involved me traveling there for 4.5 years to see if we could even have a company there. And then we had a company there, and we opened up, and 5.5 years later, here I am, and it's awesome. This is my second or third year here at FITC, and it's great to be back. And here you all are at this foolish, possibly overstretched metaphor of a presentation called Total Eclipse of the Art, the emotional process of creating anything. And this is really a story not just about the 80s, but a story about time, my walk through time, and this idea that there is an emotional journey when you want to create something awesome, or even the attempt to try can often be extremely emotional. So where I was sitting, and what sort of inspired this conversation today is that when I first started going to New York City to try to see if we could do work, we didn't really have any work. We didn't have any clients. We didn't have anything going on. And I'd come to a presentation or a conference or see a talk, and they would say, here is this idea that we had, and then here's this polished, beautiful thing that we created. And it was like, it felt to me like the creative process was almost like this holy golden chariot coming down, a Christ of creativity, who would baptize you in awesome, and you would have a case study, win some awards, and make lots of money. And then, in order to try to get to that, I thought, well, maybe we should make some stuff. So we started working with different clients and trying all over the board, really not saying no to anything, not being picky, being the furthest thing from an artist, and just trying to make and make and make and make. And some of it is extremely dumb, and some of it is you may have seen it. This is a photo shoot we took on for no reason other than, hey, I've never done a photo shoot, so what's the process in doing that? It ended up in Vogue magazine, which is kind of cool. This other stuff, it wasn't about the content that we were doing. It was about learning your own sort of emotional stability and what that meant until you get to a point where you kind of feel like you're exhausting everything, and you have these smokes. That's the creative director on that project, by the way. He ended up being Santa, which is pretty cool. And then we end up with this. So we open up an office. It's February. And April, right this time, actually, Tribeca Film Festival is going on. So this time last year, we had the opportunity to build something absolutely foolish in 6 weeks. We built an artificially intelligent acting judge for Tribeca Film Festival, and then they threw it around 27 locations in the city, and people got to try and test and break the machine that we worked so hard to make. But it did well, and it worked awesome, and I'm not going to talk about that today. But what I did learn through that whole process, that creating anything is really, 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 really fucking hard. It's really hard to go from this sort of sketch. This is as far as I get in terms of my artistic prowess. I draw these little pen sketches to direct the team to say, now there you go, make this. So, but there's a massive process between A and B. This was something that just launched last weekend. We had 6 days to build an arcade game that tried to bring awareness to gun violence. And when you're dealing with these sort of compressed timelines, you're bound to get pissed off at somebody pretty quickly. And I saw this thing. At around the same time, I was writing the outline for this presentation because I had to change things up from last year. And you may have seen it. It's not mine. It's John Sannington put on his blog in December. And it is the emotional journey of creating anything great. This is essentially the presentation. If you leave now, you've got it without all the 80s shit. So, but I want to take you through it because I believe it's actually true, and I believe that it's something that is inevitable and perhaps necessary because in the 200 so projects in the last 4.5 years I've had the opportunity to be a part of, this is something that we just couldn't get past. So let's get started, shall we? Oh, where's my music? There's music. Hold on. We got to do this right. Let's get started. Are you ready? Are we cool? Yeah? All right. So you get to do this. And every slide you get a little musical moment. But this is You Make My Dreams Come True. Very somewhat of a popular song. Maybe some of you have heard of it. Maybe no one was born in the 80s that's in this room. I'm not sure. But this is the honeymoon phase. Everyone knows this. Even if you've been in a relationship, it's love, it's work, whatever, you get the pitch. You win the business. You have that big idea. Everyone's high-fiving. Love is in the air. The courtship begins. And life could not be grander. And there's no reason that I need to talk to you about this because everyone already knows about it. But what I want to draw attention to is that in this part of the process, the details that everyone is dealing with and time are almost little. You've sold through an idea or you've come up with something without actually knowing how to completely get it done. It's an idea in your head, and the whole process to get it through time and to the end, into that moment of greatness, hopefully, is going to require you to divulge more details as you go, and often you don't know what those details are going to be. And I just want you to keep that in mind as we go through this presentation, because the inverse chart to that is this one. At the beginning, a big round table full of people high five and drink a beer and maybe go out to lunch or do karaoke till 5:30 in the morning or whatever. But as this process goes and we go from this awesomeness into this depth of hell, people start to abandon the process, either mentally or literally physically removing themselves from the process. And I don't know if you've ever had that experience, but I certainly get it all the time. So through that, I'll put it through my filter. 2 projects that we've sort of near and dear to my heart. One of them is fresh off the press. I think the whole story is launching either today or yesterday or sometime. I'm not sure. I haven't been following the news on it. But this is an internal program we did with Y&R in New York, and it was based on the idea that there are no women's statues anywhere in the world, really. There are 22 male statues in Central Park. 0 of them are women. The same goes for almost every park in North America. My hometown, Halifax, Nova Scotia, there are 0. There are 300 statues of men in the province, and there's 1 woman. So the idea was 2 things. Can we create an augmented reality app that, without a marker or using nothing but geolocation, can we place a 3D full-size statue of an awesome woman from history beside the male statue? And part 2 of that was, and let's make it open source so people all over the world can do that and add their own statues so that they can, you can't see what you can't be, and let's sort of rewrite history in these communities. The other one is Cigna. This was Cigna BioBall. It's a project that we worked on for about a year and a half. It launched at Disney. The program is very simple. It's a very complex thing that we had to build, but the idea was very simple, which is like, hey, what does the future of healthcare look like in preventative medicine? And can we give people an experience that does that while also giving awareness to their preventative health, like their biometrics and their health? So the process moves forward, and you get to start making things. And you feel unstoppable, and you feel invincible, and you almost feel immortal at this point, and shame on you for feeling this way, because it's all going to come crashing down, but we'll get to that in another 10 slides. But it's going to be fun. Everyone's still having fun. The brief, this is literally the brief that we got from, hey, inspire and educate women all over the world by putting somehow a female Mount Rushmore beside a real one. That sounded fun. I had no idea how we would do it. So you do what you can do. So you start modeling stuff. You start to try to bring stuff out early, because we know that we have to do 33 of these statues in 4.5 weeks, or we sort of fail, so we start the modeling process. And this isn't sort of live happening right now. This is a screen record from about 4 hours of work. On our first statue, try to establish that benchmark of what things will look like. But it's the creative process that everyone loves. It's the thing that you get to come with an outcome and be like, oh, yeah, isn't that fabulous? We love the way this looks. Everyone's still high-fiving. Love is in the air, right? Third date's pretty good. In the case of the whole story, they said, hey, we saw this prototype you did, so augmented reality can't be that hard. A few years ago, remember you brought that bottle of alcohol in our office, and then you launched this sort of weird experience that came off it, and it seemed nothing we hadn't really ever seen before. And I was like, yeah, I remember that. Why do you remember that? And they're like, well, I think that sort of inspired us too, because this seemed really hard and impossible, but you made it look easy. And I said, this is nothing like that, but sure, why not? Let's go for it. Meanwhile, on the Cigna side, we get a brief that's this picture, and it says, hey, we saw this installation in the Middle East, and it involved people sort of getting their checkup through a gamified experience at a museum. And notice the link at the bottom. It says, when your gym is an arcade and your arcade says you have cancer. And I thought, why the fuck are we going to do this? This is probably the most risky project we could ever have, and how literal is this going to be? And luckily, it's not that literal, so we didn't have to go down that road. They gave it to us, actually, because clearly this has been done before, but this actually didn't work. It was a museum installation, more like the demonstration of what could be. And in the 6 weeks they gave us, they said, we want you to actually make this work and see what you can do. So we put pen to paper. We drew this sort of perspective box, which gives you the feeling this could someday exist. And then we did these little, mock-ups, and they're like, hey, look, people are moving. That's like a weird deep lunge. And look, 2 people can play, and it can be a lot of fun. And it's really easy to kind of have this open dialogue and communication at this point in the process. There's almost over-communication. Everyone's excited about the little mini milestones. And you love to see the progress about it. But I think, let's take this chance to define what that progress means. There's this, again, another inverse. I love this sort of contradictory slides. It's the way I operate in my entire life. How it feels is some sort of how something looks and how something works. And for whatever reason, the process usually looks like this, which is maybe a cause, if not a massive point of why we have this dip that we're going to get to in a minute, where you go from this brilliant idea in the honeymoon phase and down into this hard, sort of more difficult scenario. But the how it feels is what everyone's worried about. It's the reason why we started building statues from day one. It's the reason why we started doing mock-ups on day one, because it gives us the time to think technically about how things are going. Unfortunately, there's sometimes the pressure from the client in order to put all your focus on that blue line and nothing or very little making assumptions on the green line. And as the process goes forward and you're getting near the end of the project and no one gives a shit at that point what it looks like, because they just want it to work and not crash every time they walk into Central Park. And now life's getting a little bit harder. You realize the project isn't as easy as you thought it was going to be. And again, why is this a surprise? Because it never is as easy as we thought it would be. As you get to know somebody, you see their quirks and quarks. It's the same with this. For example, we went through the entire sort of beauty visualization process, launched this sort of internal version like, hey, we're eager to show you. It froze on the home screen. And then when we got past the home screen finally, it froze on the first time the camera feed launched. And everyone was seeing this sort of bearing all, and quickly people going, oh, are we dating the right people in this environment? So then we had to do something quick. We prototyped. This is we thought we'd take that one model that we made, and this is our office in Halifax, Nova Scotia. It's a beautiful balcony overlooking the ocean, which is a far cry from the reality of what we had to make. And essentially, we thought we would hide the fact that we need the camera to scan and try to find the ground by littering the screen of your phone with a whole large description in order to provide load time for this AR statue. So project's complete, right? I mean, we just did it. We solved the problem. As we watch it, it actually disappears at the end of this, but we thought we were ready to go. Now, meanwhile, on the Cigna side, they're like, okay, you need to take people's blood pressure, you need to take people's body mass index, you need to take their blood, and you need to make that all happen on this little circular ball called the BioBall. And I was like, man, I'm not really into blood, so can we just nix this one and put it in the back burner and someone else can do that, because I'm not about giving everyone a syphilis endemic somehow by mixing bloods by accident or something. Anyhow, not my blood, but that's not, that's gone. And then we had to put the BioBall in a room, because the entire thing was built around this idea that everyone should be able to experience virtual reality without having to wear a headset. And since this was launching at Disney, they didn't want children going in wearing, say, a Rift or whatever. They wanted to be able to, say, stand in a 10 by 10 foot LCD room on an LED floor, moving around with this biometric ball. To the point where, great idea. I found this when I was digging up, looking for source material and references. This is literally what I said in 2015. We hadn't really started the project. I barfed in my mouth there. It was the visceral experience of being able to see that maybe where you're going is not going to be exactly where you end up, but you want to, and you need to acknowledge that work is going to be hard, and that's okay. That's the part of it. That's why I call it work, right? So keep sharing progress, which we've defined. Choose what that may be. I think it's got to be a balance. Throw the tech. Throw the mistakes. Show people that it's going to be difficult, because you're still, let's say this is a 2-month timeline. You're still in the first quarter. And then fail fast. You know that you're going to have limitations, so prototype, keep things simple. I know I'm sort of throwing out words that probably the other two presentations are doing the same, but what I mean is people want to see something beautiful, a beautiful model. Do we need to do a whole damn model on our balcony in the office to show that the technology was working? No, we could have put a post. We could have put a square cube, spent all our time doing, and that's what we did do internally. We never shared that. And that was sort of this weird account client service dynamic that was going on. And now this is the bugs start to come, right? Things are starting to fail. You're like, well, this is not what I had planned. I know it's going to be hard work. We're already spending late nights. Time is of the essence. Things are moving. And we were literally at the point with Cigna where we went to Connecticut. We set up a 20-foot by 20-foot room to give them an alpha test. They wanted to see before. And they wanted everyone in the office to see it for some reason. So 2,600 staff. I'm not sure why we had to do it live for the first time in front of 2,600 people, but it was very, very nerve-wracking, especially when we got there and we realized once we did the actual setup and once we had trusses in place and we had seen this thing for real, that the Kinect was going to sit about 3.5 feet above what we had expected. So we can't, it's working completely inconsistently. Essentially, Kinect's just tracking your movement, right? You're playing like this, and when you're looking at this is the skeletal view of what the Kinect sees, and you see there's little circles around where your hands are, because it's actually using your hands. That's all it's looking for. But now when you put your hands together, it doesn't really see them. It just sees this one unit. But we had already identified that was a challenge, and we had gotten past it. However, when you're in the game, here's another point. Often when you're in a project and you're running through it, and a developer, say, going through a sprint, the process that they learn to work within the limit of the technology without knowing it. So with this, we're testing. People are testing like this, playing the game. And they're getting really good at it. They're killing it. And the minute we give that ball to a human being, they move around. They move like crazy. They're moving the circle all over the place to the point that it's up here, it's down here, and what does a circle look like on a human body that might confuse the Kinect? It looks like a human head. So what was happening is every time we brought the ball up, the Kinect would now think that your head is the ball, and it would like bend itself over, and everything would go to shit. It was a disaster. It was the worst. I think it may go down as the worst alpha launch ever in history. And we were all like, yeah, that's cool. We're going to be all right. I was standing there like, yeah, that's right. I was like, that's how it's supposed to work, you know? It's because you're too tall and you're too short. No. And then meanwhile, we had that really nice little alpha test, sort of like prototype in Nova Scotia, and then we had to go to Central Park and start to actually do the actual test. And the problem is Central Park is 843 acres, and we had 2 producers that were going to walk through the park, because I thought it would be a really cool idea for this project that you literally had to go to the actual statue to lay it and place this AR asset that you've created. Because in my mind, I was like, oh, someone in like Europe's going to be wanting to see something in wherever, Hyde Park or something, and they're going to literally have to go to that physical statue of Churchill, and they're going to lay this other statue beside it. And that was cool. It still is a cool feature of the app, and still there, but it was a terrible pain in the ass when we had to walk through 843 acres for like 2.5 weeks, because there are no chargers out there. We like literally looked like Ghostbusters wearing these massive battery packs, and it was killing our phone. And when we get there, and the behavior was completely inconsistent, and we were trying to download assets, and they weren't coming with all their layers, and then they would freeze, and there was like weird grids. And this is the part, remember when I said that sometimes there's this people that are involved and they slowly start to jump ship? This is like a literal jumping ship GIF, which and it's Axl Rose, and why wouldn't that matter here? But this is the process where this starts to like literally happen. Maybe not off a boat, but people start to distance themselves or blame, or they do like this coat of arms thing where they're like, hey, it's not me, you know. And we need to avoid that. So instinct here is to apply like crazy amount of pressure and start to get stressed out, but don't get angry yet. I mean, you don't really. This is not rock bottom. It just feels that way. Reiterate the goal, and this is in every aspect of this process, because reiterating the goal is extremely important, because the goal is often not to solve this technical challenge that you're trying to that you've burrowed yourself into for the weekend. It's the broader context. You know, the whole story job is about giving people the opportunity to see a more balanced story in history. You know, the Cigna was just about giving people a taste of what medicine could be like. There are no definitions of what that means except whatever you're applying to yourself. And reminding everybody that it's part of something bigger is maybe not motivation, so to speak, but it is at least something that everyone can agree on when when the bug report is a little bit longer than what you would like it to be. And like anything, even beautiful people can start to look ugly as you get to know them. So this isn't just like people in the project. I'm not being literal about this. Again, this whole thing's riddled with stretchy metaphors. But what I mean is that this is usually a point where the engagement in the application or the project begins to take on its own sort of life, and it may not be the prettiest thing. People may refer to it in less than a positive light. We need to keep it going. And you start to lose your confidence. And George knew that. Well, I guess he wrote it, so that's great. But yeah, you lose your confidence. You start to run out of, start to second guess all the things that you already knew that you would second guess. Literally, with enough experience, you knew this was coming. Why can't you deal with it? And just when you think that you're like, okay, we're going to reiterate the goal. We've got this going. We're going to write the path to get us out of this. You realize and you're reminded, and usually like a big hammer on your face, that you are not the only one in this relationship. There's another party. And they're going to try to solve problems with the tools that they have. And for Cigna, you're standing in a 10-foot by 10-foot LCD room. You're holding this custom manufactured biometric ball we created. It does all sorts of random shit to you. And they said, I know it's not working, but what if we gave everyone a HoloLens to wear while they did all of that? Would they even notice? And I said, well, this is a complicated thing that we're adding to a very complicated thing. We did. We added the HoloLens. It basically made a 3D game experience, and they added this a month out. And yes, it changed scope and all that stuff, but it didn't change timeline. They really felt that actually adding a headset would add a line at the event. And after that weird sort of flaky behavior of the Whole Story app, because of the timeline as well, we were pushing to an International Women's Day launch, the agency said, you know what? We should be open and transparent with each other. Give us the present state of the app, and we're going to give it to 30 people in the park, and they're going to test it for you. Now, that was terrifying because the present state of the app was the one that I just showed you, and they already knew, and the bug report was done. They just wanted to see the inconsistencies at a larger scale. I'm not sure why. And then there's this sort of creative singularity of the universe, which I don't know if any of you sit in many different boardrooms, but if you happen to go from one place to another, you are bound to hear the same idea happen. It's usually in clumps of time. Like literally right now, there's 3 briefs for mirrors, like cool digital mirrors that do stuff. And none of those people know that we're all working on this one thing, so it helps us. But for this, Hidden Figures, a great movie came out. I think New York Times put it with Ogilvy, built an app that put statues of pardon my French, put statues of women in these locations based on these AR markers. Beautiful, it was beautifully executed, looked great. Got a lot of press, and we're sitting there going, oh my God, we're literally making that at this very second without all the markers and all that other stuff. Maybe a broader story. Put her on the map was another sort of Niantic, the guys that made Pokemon Go. They're like, oh yeah, we can do this too. They make this promise, or like this promise with BBDO to do this exact same thing, but in a broader scale globally. But it's just a video, so we're like, oh, maybe it's just like a bluff for a cans play. I'm not sure. And then a real statue gets put downtown. I'm sure you've all seen it or heard about it. But the idea being that like we're in the middle of this process. We're trying to keep confidence. Everyone's trying to believe that what we are doing is still right. And then other people start talking about doing something similar. So now you're at a crossroads. What are you going to do? You have to remind everybody why. I don't need to get into that. Or you can just quit. And then you can go out and try to test the app, and you're like, one big push, and we're going to do it. And we feel good about this build. This is the one. This is the build that we're going to do well.
Would be. Hold on. Stay up there. Put it back up.
My fucking phone dies.
It died?
I'm just going to cry.
That's Cassidy. She's still alive. This was a laugh, but it might have been followed quickly by tears when I cut it off. But essentially, we could not. Her phone was fully charged, and the app killed her phone. And this is what we saw at beta. It was new behavior that regressed somehow. We were like, oh man, we're so screwed now. Thanks, John. Now you're in, I don't know if you know this is hell, as depicted by Dante. And you may have been in various levels of this hell. I think I've seen all of them inside and out. It's a glorious place to come back from. This is my life in hell. So this is where you've now hit the end. You're not sure how to crawl back out of this. Late nights, everyone's putting pressure. The project is like this ominous demon that's plowing through everything, loving and cherishing your life, and you can't bring it back. You can't seem to survive. You're getting to work, putting on your best face. But everybody knows you're like a crumbling human inside. You wear your best. I always put on suits at this point, because I don't wear suits usually, but I comb my hair, and then I put on a tie, and I go to work like, I am a noble man. But that's what I look like. So, what is going on here? The craziest problem, again, you can take this, we can draw a parallel between love and emotion and all that stuff, but life is easy if there weren't any other people around. I actually said this yesterday outside the bowling to Xander, and then I wrote it in this slide last night. But yeah, if people weren't involved, life would be easy. And what I mean by that is, the emotions are going to kick in, and everyone's thought in this process is that we want to stem emotion. We want to remove emotion for this. Let's all be like objective human beings. But emotion is what builds something beautiful and awesome. So we don't want to kill it. We need to just this is not something to avoid. So we stop, we take a moment to breathe, and own the hell out of this thing. This is your problem now. Everyone else is going to try to bring other ways of solving it, but you are going to map your way on how to crawl your way out of hell. And then this idea of motivating, which is such a broad general term and really hard to define. But what I mean by it is that they say, at this point, usually people say, crack the whip, everyone on site, like 24 hours a day, we're working over the weekend, say goodbye to your families until this project is done. And that can work, but this is at the last leg of a project usually, you've already been doing that. So I look at it like another metaphor, but like look at fire. You can create a beautiful explosion that's very fast and vibrant and massive by applying pressure, right? You can combust. But then it's gone. It's there, it's flash bang. Or you can seed something slowly with oxygen, and you can slowly let it sort of burn. It might be slower, it might start, but it's more controlled. It's something you can manage. And you can often get something that lasts and sustainable that people are proud of by just giving space. So often when we hit hell, we give everyone the day off. Like, you know what, we're here. It sucks. Go home. Because the only way you're getting through this is by remembering this is a job. This might be the entire way that you feed your family, but this is still just your job. So find humor in it in some way. At least get home and like see and laugh. You need to still keep that emotion alive because the sun's going to rise.
Did my words not come out right?
This is a stretch, this one.
Though I tried not to hurt you, though I tried, but I guess that's why they say.
You have a product now, and it's still sort of prickly. It works, but it sucks. And internally, you're excited about it because you know you've sort of crossed this hump. You're crawling out of hell. Client is very hurt about it. They're like, I don't know. I don't know about this, man. I know you said that everything was cool before, but I don't know. I mean, you just kept sort of lying to us, basically, and it's not that cool. But it is, which I'm not really, but they were hurt, and it's going to take a while to come back from getting hurt. You need to build trust in little baby steps, no matter how small. For Cigna, remember the head, the Kanye slide? We needed to stop tracking your hands and the ball. We were looking at the same thing. We're just standing there looking at skeletons, going like, fuck me. And notice that there's some geometry that was always present. There was these triangles. You had this triangle, you had this triangle. Everywhere you went, there was these triangles, and we're like, well, what if we just stopped tracking sort of your hands, or we stopped tracking your body, and we just looked for geometry, and we just did a lot of math around it? I mean, and this is the simplest way I can describe it, but essentially we went from trying to track a ball to tracking triangles in order to make this thing run consistently without changing our perspective. And with Dennis, he was at Spotlight AR with me. He was the one that resolved this UN bug. We found this massive memory leak. And it only could be reproduced with this 13 steps that you see up here. Literally, every time you did this, you would get your phone to crash completely, reset. And this was terrifying. When I shared this with the client, I was like, hey, good news. We can make it crash every time we do this. And like, this is the worst news you've said all day. I was like, no, I know that we're now like 35 minutes away from solving this. And there's hope. Like, hey, we're gonna be okay. There's a chance, guys. Let's run out of this.
I can't be too late to say that.
And now this is a point where people want to apologize or they want to call it a day. It's like, this is good enough. We've gone from, I like it, but it's not great. So, when we all got together and we all high-fived at the first step in that honeymoon, we want to build something awesome. No one was coming in this to settle. So you have that temptation in the project here, and sometimes they do. But everything in your power, and this is a leader of the project, your job is literally to get this shit going. Like, keep this going. I know this is how you feel. You don't want to go. You've basically picked up all sorts of various habits. Maybe it's not red wine, but it could be anything. So you have this project fatigue. Because, again, maybe you didn't add oxygen to the hell process to get people to pump through, and you worked them all day. And now you still have to finish the damn thing, and everyone's burned. And they hate the project, and they hate who they are, and their family hates them, and they hate working for you, and they hate me because I'm wearing a suit to friggin' work every day, looking like a smug look on my face, like, this is awesome. So one thing we do is sometimes we'll go back to that creative spot, and we'll just redesign everything. Because it sounds like a lot of work, but with what you just went through, it revitalizes. It makes it feel like a new project. We kind of brought it over. We started seeing progress and placing stuff and going, anytime we saw something like this, we shared it with the client. Again, those small notions, and propping everybody up who stuck it out. None of these people work for me, but it's sort of like another metaphor, like, visual idea of trying to, let's give Lionel his time.
Is it me you're looking for?
Getting through shit together makes you stronger, hashtag. This is, you've built confidence. Everybody now believes that they can see the end in sight. Some people start to come back into the process. The bandwagon exists. And it isn't so bad when you're the wagon. You don't mind if everyone wants to jump on and be a part of something. And there's this opportunity here to sort of rewrite history in a little way. So the whole story, as soon as we had this glimmer of hope that we're going to get through it, we went to the United Nations, the Girl Scouts, Girls Who Code, and 3 other organizations said, hey, we have this thing that you can be a part of, and we don't even want to distribute it. If you guys want to take it and run with it, it's yours, it's an open platform, go for it. And everyone said, well, does it work? And I was like, yes, it does. Think on your feet to add value. For Cigna, we did the initial beta. We went to Disney. It worked. Everyone was like, yay, this is the best thing we've ever done. Way to go. We had 3,000 people try it. And then it was, well, the problem with it is gigantic. So can we make a smaller one? Can you apply it to other business processes and marketing? We're doing one now with our marketing team's Bullseye. Don't ask me. It won't be on a reel ever. But it's taking it and saying, you love this thing. Show me how much you love it. Let's do something else together and sort of rewrite what has gone.
Don't stop believing.
Now you're back in the honeymoon phase. Everyone's happy. I'm coming to the end of the presentations. You don't have to sit here any longer and listen to my nonsense. But everyone, it's amazing, like I said, the bandwagon thing, and you show it and everything, but everybody now believes that the end is near, and it's a success. So I'll show you two quick case studies. Somehow, just hit play here.
If you were given the chance to save a life, you'd take it, right? But what if it was your own? With only 19% of the US population making a point to receive their recommended checkup each year, nearly 40 million Americans are currently living with a chronic illness that they're unaware of. Recognizing that people often blame having a busy schedule or fear as reasons to avoid the doctor, Cigna decided to reinvent the checkup experience using cutting-edge technology, putting consumers' health right into their own hands with the BioBall experience. From idealistic concept to working reality, the BioBall is the first ever futuristic, gamified version of a modern-day checkup. Using state-of-the-art Microsoft HoloLens technology, Cigna created an immersive experience in which consumers were outfitted with a mixed reality headset that brought to life an arcade-like room with the BioBall at the center. During registration and the 60 seconds of gameplay, the full BioBall experience worked in the background to record and capture core health metrics such as pulse, body mass index, and blood pressure. Upon game completion, players were shown their statistics via the HoloLens headset to maintain their privacy. But the experience didn't end there. Cigna was able to use players' information to send personalized email follow-ups that included tips on how to implement preventative care into their everyday lives. Cigna delivered over 2,600 biometric stats to runners and their families at the Walt Disney World Marathon Expo in January 2017. Just weeks later, a scalable pop-up variation of BioBall was rolled out with plans to travel across the Cigna network at events, expos, and educational forums. With over 88 million earned media impressions during its first week of launch alone, word of Cigna taking the lead in healthcare innovation was spread around the globe.
This is not public, so turn off your recording devices. It's literally, I pulled it down from the Vimeo because you can see the time codes on it. But it's the present day result of it. And I'll show you now. This is, again, same sort of deal. This will come out with a press release, but I didn't want to have to talk the entire time and then not show you the result.
I always thought New York was that liberal, like very open to everything. So I was kind of confused when they weren't open to 51% of the population, but they're open to like other things. Like they have a statue of a dog, but they don't have a woman.
And this is Maria Tolchief. She was a Native American who became America's first prima ballerina. I put Maria Tolchief in Dante Park.
This is Abigail Adams.
And this is Althea Gibson.
This is Marie Curie.
Now this is Shirley Chisholm.
This is Amelia Earhart.
And this is Emily Dickinson.
if those women are not there, it's really a generation of girls that won't even see the possibilities that lie before them.
This case wasn't released because once we got to the point where it worked in New York City, they felt like part two, this is an open source application. So there's a revised version being done now because we finished the 22 in Central Park, but we added another 45 in 12 countries around the world. So it should be cool. Now this process isn't every project. There are sometimes sometimes time or like a shit ton of money can avoid this aspect, but those are two limitations that we usually have to deal with. I don't think we've ever worked on a project for more than 6 months. The preparation of knowing you're going into this sort of emotional roller coaster is necessary, and I think that inevitably something that's required for an awesome project. And so, getting through it, I'll just leave you with these points, is that, you got to remember that you work with people, and all too often when things are tough, you revert to the objective sort of machine talk, and that's no different than how most people handle shit in their own life, right, with the people that they love and care about. So you're working with people, and keeping that at the heart of the project will allow that their emotions can be embedded in what you're doing and create something maybe magical and wonderful. Because none of us is as smart as all of us, and you don't know where the value in that project will come, or where the solution will come out of, or how it will all come together, or who's going to react the best when asked to rise up to the challenge. And finally, creativity conquers all. Thank you for your time today.